Hello, aspirants, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle the lifeblood of India's geography and history, its incredible river systems. We're going to break it all down in a really simple, exam-focused way that's perfect for your UPSC prep.
So I want to kick things off by asking you a question, a big one. When you think about the Indian subcontinent, from its earliest history all the way to today, what's the one geographical feature that has shaped our civilization more than anything else?
Yep, it's the rivers. It really is that simple. You know, from the Indus Valley civilization to our modern farmlands, rivers have literally carved out the story of India. And for the civil services exam, understanding them isn't just important, it's absolutely fundamental.
Okay, let's start our journey up in the north with our first major category, the Himalayan rivers. I like to call them the young giants because geologically, that's exactly what they are. They're youthful, they're incredibly powerful, and they are constantly changing the world around them.
So what really makes these giants tick? Well, for starters, they're born from massive Himalayan glaciers. That means they're perennial. They have water flowing in them all year round, fed by both melting snow and the monsoon rains. This constant flow gives them just immense energy, which they use to carve out these long, winding, meandering courses and create huge, fertile floodplains that support millions of people.
Now, let's get into the three main systems here, starting with the Indus. It starts up in Tibet, flows through India, and then heads into Pakistan. Now, for your exam, the most critical thing to remember are its main tributaries, and here's a fantastic mnemonic for you, JCRBS. That's Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej. Seriously, lock that one in your memory.
Next, of course, we have the Ganga system, rising from the Gangotri Glacier. You could argue this is the single most important river system in India. It supports a massive population all along its plains, powering our agriculture and holding just immense cultural significance for millions. The key tributaries you want to remember here are the Yamuna, Ghaghara, Gandak, and Kosi.
And our third and final giant is the Brahmaputra, which has this really fascinating dual identity. Over in Tibet, where it starts, is called the Tsangpo. Then it takes this dramatic U-turn to enter India through Arunachala Pradesh. This river is famous for its sheer volume of water and, unfortunately, for causing some pretty major floods.
So, here is the perfect summary sentence you can use in your exam answers. Just remember this. The Himalayan rivers are young, geologically active, and have a high capacity for erosion. That one line, it captures their character perfectly.
Okay, let's head south now, and you'll really start to see the contrast. We're moving from the young giants to what I like to call the ancient workhorses, the peninsular rivers. These rivers are much, much older, way more mature, and they've been flowing on their steady paths for eons.
Now these guys are a totally different beast. Unlike their Himalayan cousins, they start in the peninsular plateau and are almost entirely rain-fed. This makes them seasonal. Their flow can change dramatically with the monsoons. They're also shorter. They follow a much more stable and straighter course, and because they're so old, their power to erode the landscape is way, way less.
The peninsular rivers are mainly split by the direction they flow. First, you've got the east-flowing rivers, which drain into the Bay of Bengal. The big names here are the Godavari, which, by the way, is the longest peninsular river, the Krishna, and the Kaveri. And here's the crucial point. These rivers deposit all their sediment at their mouth, forming large, triangular deltas.
Then you have the west-flowing rivers, which empty into the Arabian Sea. The two you absolutely have to know are the Narmada and the Tapi. Now, because these rivers flow through steep, rocky rift valleys, they don't drop sediment and build deltas. Instead, they form something called estuaries, and we're going to define that in just a moment.
Okay, this is it, the main event. This comparison, Himalayan versus peninsular, is one of the most important high-yield topics in Indian geography, for both your prelims and your mains. Getting the differences here is absolutely critical.
So let's break this down point by point. First, look at their nature. Himalayan rivers, they flow all year, they're perennial. Peninsular rivers, they're seasonal, totally dependent on the monsoon. Huge difference. Their origins are different too. Glaciers for the Himalayas, the old plateau for the peninsula. This completely affects their length and their course. The Himalayan rivers are long and they meander all over the place, while the older peninsular rivers have carved out shorter, straighter paths. And finally, erosion. The young giants have massive erosion power, while the ancient workhorses have very little. This table just perfectly sums up that fundamental contrast.
All right, let's take a second to really nail down those two key terms we mentioned, delta and estuary. I'm telling you, Getting these definitions right can make a huge difference in the quality of your written answers.
First up, the delta. Think of it like a river's grand finale. As the river slows down right before it meets the sea, it just drops all the sand and silt it's been carrying. This stuff builds up, forcing the river to split into lots of smaller channels. We call them distributaries, creating this triangular, super fertile piece of land. The Ganga-Brahmaputra Delta is the classic example of this.
An estuary, on the other hand, is completely different. In this case, the river enters the sea through a single, deep, funnel-shaped mouth. There's no deposition of sediment. Instead, it's a mixing zone where the river's fresh water slams into the sea's salt water. The Narmada is your prime example of a river that forms an estuary.
So, to put it really simply, east-flowing peninsular rivers, like the Godavari, they have a gentle slope and they carry a lot of sediment, so they get lazy at the end and build deltas. West-flowing rivers, like the Narmada, they flow through hard rock and deep valleys, so they carry less silt and they meet the sea with a lot more force, carving out estuaries instead.
And listen, if you're ever stuck in the exam and you're having a brain freeze moment, just use this super simple trick. East equals delta, west equals estuary. It's a quick and dirty way to recall this crucial fact when you're under pressure.
All right, let's wrap this all up with a final rapid-fire revision round to make sure these core ideas are completely locked in your memory. You ready for this?
Here we go. Himalayan rivers are
Perennial and young.
good. Peninsular rivers are
Seasonal and old.
excellent. East-flowing peninsular rivers form
Deltas.
west-flowing peninsular rivers form.
Estuaries.
You got it. What's the longest peninsular river?
The Godavari.
And which river is known as the Sorrow of Bihar?
The Kosi.
Fantastic.
By getting a handle on these fundamentals, you've just built a really solid foundation in Indian geography. You've navigated the young giants and the ancient workhorses. So the real question is, with this knowledge now in your toolkit, which part of the huge UPSC syllabus are you going to conquer next?